Good morning to the Honorable Ministers of the Council, members of the media, online viewers, radio listeners via St. Martin Gov Radio 107.9 FM and respective radio stations island-wide. I'm Rolika Roach and welcome to the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, December 16, 2020. At this time, I would like to invite the Minister of Public Health, Social Development and Labor, the Honorable Richard Panaflick, to address you. Minister Panaflick, you have the virtual floor.
Thank you, Ms. Roach. Good morning to all members of the media, my esteemed colleagues of the Council of Ministers and the people of St. Martin. I would like to provide the public with an update on the latest statistics on COVID-19. As of December 15, 1,269 persons had a laboratory confirmed COVID-19 infection. To date, there have been 1,111 persons that have recovered from COVID-19 and 26 persons unfortunately have passed away. There are currently 132 cases that are actively being monitored by CPS. I continue to commend persons who have contacted CPS and continue to urge persons to come forward and call your general practitioner or CPS if you are experiencing any symptoms. Today, I'm once again urging everyone to follow the advices of CPS if they are placed in quarantine or isolation and remain at home. I understand that everybody is looking forward to the holidays as a time of togetherness. However, we must face the fact that the numbers are increasing, and if this trends continue, we will have to enforce drastic measures to reduce the spread of the virus. The survey from SZV, CoM, and CPS about COVID-19 is launching today, December 16, and will be disseminated to the general public. I encourage everyone to complete the survey as the results will be used to inform a comprehensive communication strategy. I would like to request all entrepreneurs, employers, take care also of your employees. Make sure that everything is in place, that they are provided with the necessary face mask, that they can work in a safe environment, and that the information necessary to them for working in your establishment is well known to all. Please take care of yourself, your loved ones, your employees, your families, and the rest of the community by adhering to the protocols that has been and will continue being make available and aware to the public so that we can curb the figures that's going up at this present moment. In closing, I would like to remind the public again, wear a mask, wash your hands, avoid mass gatherings, and take COVID seriously. Thank you. May God protect our community. May God protect St. Martin. Thank you, Ms. Roach.
Thank you, Minister Panaflick, for your opening remarks. I would like to inform the members of the media and the listening and viewing public that Minister Panaflick will be leaving this morning's press briefing due to another meeting that the minister needs to attend. Minister Panaflick, thank you for joining us this morning. I would now like to invite the Minister of Education, Culture, Youth and Sport, the Honorable Dr. Anders Rudolph Samuel, to address you. Minister Samuel, you have the virtual floor.
Thank you, Relika, and good morning PM. Good morning to my colleagues. Good morning to the media, and blessed day to all of the people of St. Martin. The Ministry of Education, Culture, Youth and Sports would hereby like to inform the general public of the following. On Tuesday, December 15, 2020, the Ministry of Education, Culture, Youth and Sports held its monthly meeting with school boards. The agenda for the meeting included a regular update regarding COVID-19 and education continuity. During the meeting, the school boards were informed regarding the latest updates received from the Health Ministry, along with update guidelines for schools regarding health protocols. Ministry findings regarding compliance among school boards and recent developments and recommendations regarding the way forward. According to the latest updates issued by the Collective Prevention Services, CPS, of the Ministry of Public Health, Social Development and Labor, the number of infections among students between the age of 0 to 9 remain low, whereas a slight increase in the number of cases in the age group of 10 to 19 is observed. As per November 2nd, 2020, more than 30 infections were observed among those in the age group of 10 to 19 by CPS, and this number increased to more than 40 cases by November 19, 2020. Additionally, school boards were also informed that since the partial reopening of schools on October 16, 2020, there have been 24 confirmed COVID-19 cases across 13 schools. Of these 13 were among students and 11 were among school staff. Given its observations regarding infections related to the school-going population, best practices are recommended by the health authorities worldwide. School boards were reminded of the health and safety measures that should be strictly adhered to in schools as detailed in the updated guidelines by the Ministry of Public Health, Social Development and Labor, which is closely aligned with guidelines provided in the ministry's Education Continuity Plan. CPS, represented in the meeting by Dr. Bowman, responded to the various questions and concerns raised by school boards during the meeting. Dr. Bowman stressed the need for persons in the community to continue to be transparent about the exposure of school-going youngsters and to adhere to the protocols of quarantine of 14 days and not attend school once the youngster has been exposed to the virus. Dr. Bowman also stated that the trends across the population show a rise in active cases, which is a cause for concern specifically for the upcoming Christmas period. He further stated that it can cause cases in January to rise significantly. School boards were also informed by CPS that the Ministry of Public Health, Social Development and Labor will be providing guidance to the community regarding the best practices for the Christmas holidays. As it pertains to the spread of the virus in schools, Dr. Bowman indicated that CPS has not observed any clusters in schools, and cases in schools are mainly derived from outside contact, and commended the school boards for their diligent efforts in upholding the health protocols. As Minister of Education, Culture, and Sports, I would also like to take this opportunity to commend all school boards for the work that they have done and continue to do, and for their ongoing cooperation between the various departments and divisions of the Ministry of Education, Culture, Youth and Sport. As we quickly approach the end of 2020 and the Christmas season, I would like to take the opportunity to thank the Minister of VSR, the Ministry of Public Health, Social Development and Labor, and the Department of CPS in particular for the excellent collaboration with the Ministry of Education, Culture, and Sports to ensure the safety of all persons connected to schools. School boards were also updated regarding developments that have been observed in the Netherlands and Germany, whereby both countries have introduced a second lockdown and schools will be closed for up to 5 weeks, with students reverting to online education and exceptions being made for vulnerable students and examination students. Lastly, as it relates to the way forward related to the education continuity, school boards were informed that due to the significant increase in local spread of COVID-19, the recommendation of the Ministry of Education, Culture, and Sport is to revert back to approach 2 of the Education Continuity Plan. The advice, however, is dependent further on developments related to COVID-19 during the coming weeks. In the event the extensive transmission over the coming weeks, a return to fully online learning will be advised as per January 4, 2020 and a subsequent update. So an update will be communicated to all school boards in the week of December 28, 2020. We remain very aware that with increase in community spread, there is a greater risk of increased infections within the school community. In order to enable our students to continue to benefit from face-to-face instructions, we must reduce the current rates of infection in our community and avoid transmission of COVID-19 within our schools. As such, I want to urge our community to continue to allow the health protocols and to follow them. Avoid large public and private gatherings, and that includes special caution for teenagers attending our secondary schools. Maintain a 2-meter distance, wear your mask, keep your hands clean. The education sector will continue to do its part, but parents, community of St. Martin, we need your continued support as we are all in this together. As we work together to ensure the safety and well-being of all within our community, I would like to take this opportunity to thank all parents, guardians, school staff, and general public for their role in preventing the further spread of COVID-19 within our community thus far. I thank you and I await any questions.
Thank you, Minister Samuel, for your opening remarks. At this time, I would like to invite the Minister of Justice, the Honorable Anna Richardson, to address you. Minister Richardson, you have the virtual floor.
Good morning, Prime Minister, colleague ministers, members of the press, Ms. Roach, and the listening and viewing public. The last 2 press briefings, SMN News representative Ms. Bibi Shah has put forward an inquiry as to whether or not there is a Department of Motor Vehicles established on St. Martin to register cars. Ms. Shaw followed up to send me an email asking several specific questions to which I have reserved as a point of transparency to respond to this via this platform where the inquiry was posed. Firstly, in 2010, while being employed in the financial industry, I recognized a DMV service was lacking or is lacking in our system. I began my research, working day and late nights developing a proposal to government and stakeholders. As a daughter of this soil and a citizen of this country, I submitted a request and acquired a business license in 2013. The financial situation of government back then to present day proves challenging with both resources and manpower for such a service. To your question as to why would government grant such an opportunity to a private person, my question to you is, have you done your research to identify how many services on the island and for that matter around the world are considered governmental duties but are executed by private agencies? Important to note, had the DMV been in place some 10 years ago, perhaps we would not have the number of vehicle-related issues we are currently having to combat. And finally, please be advised, upon becoming a minister, we are required to distance ourselves from our businesses, and this minister shall continue to follow the law as it is prescribed. In closing, I am well aware that you have been provided this information with malicious and malice intent to tarnish my name and character. But I would like to officially thank you, Ms. Shah, and the parties preparing to execute this very same service for allowing me the opportunity to share with the public that for years and years before taking this position, I have been an innovative thinker and a trailblazer in realizing what my country lacks, needs, and have taken steps to be a part of the solution, not the problem. At this time, I have no further updates, but I am available for any productive questions the media might have. Thank you, Relaika.
Thank you, Minister Richardson, for your opening remarks. At this time, I would like to invite the Minister of Tourism, Economic Affairs, Transport, and Telecommunication, the Honorable Ludmila De Wever, to address you. Minister De Wever, you have the virtual floor.
Thank you, Ms. Roach. Good morning, Honorable Prime Minister, colleague ministers, members of the press, Ms. Roach, and the listening and viewing public. Here are TAT's announcements for the week. I am happy to announce that our director of the St. Martin Tourism Bureau, Ms. Mei Ling Chung, has been awarded Caribbean Tourism Director of the Year by Carib Journal. St. Martin is presently seen as a Dutch Caribbean destination that is leading in our tourism reopening with the phased approach that we started back in July when we welcomed our visitors here. Caribbean Journal has dubbed Director Mei Ling Chung as one of the Caribbean's most respected tourism executives. We are more than proud of her tenacity, drive, and leadership to continue pushing St. Martin to the forefront of Caribbean destinations. In regards to the vendors at Great Bay Beach, all vendors are reminded that they have to remove their storage boxes and chairs from Great Bay Beach by December 31st. A letter has been sent informing vendors that the boxes need to be removed. If they are not removed by the deadline of December 31st, they will be removed. Regarding the travel insurance for St. Martin, I would like to announce that the insurance for all visitors to the island will be implemented by year end. Further announcements regarding the details will be released this week, as well as the website that you can go to, which is linked to stmartinentry.com. It will all be done in one place. So businesses to ensure COVID-19 protocols are practiced. It is evident that our COVID-19 active cases have surged past 100, as just announced by Minister Ponifleck. As governments across the world continue to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic by going back to curfew and lockdowns, St. Martin cannot. The survival of our economy is dependent on our behavior. Government has a role to play in enforcing these conditions and even closing businesses that do not follow the protocol. However, we all have a role to keep our at-risk family and friends safe. I hereby remind our residents, visitors, and our business community to ensure that the COVID-19 protocols are followed so that our economy gets the deserving boost that is very much needed at this time. It is very important that St. Martin avoids a lockdown at all costs. This can only be avoided if we adhere to the four main protocols when out in public places: mask usage, frequent hand washing or hand sanitizing, maintaining social distance of 2 meters, and practicing proper coughing and sneezing etiquette. All businesses and services had to implement the mandatory guidelines of the COVID-19 prevention and safety plan and have the operational plans in place prior to reopening their businesses after the lockdown. These operation plans included managing of social distancing within and outside the business or establishment, ensuring that staff and clients wear masks, ensuring that sick employees do not come to work, ensuring that the facilities of the business are thoroughly and frequently cleaned and sanitized, the implementation of proper crowd control within and outside the establishment with the use of signage. So I will repeat that. The implementation of proper crowd control within and outside the establishment, and a maximum number of clients allowed at one time in the business or establishment. These conditions are enforceable, and businesses are reminded that we are still operating under the ministerial regulations signed by the Minister of VSA, Richard Ponifleck, and me. Please note that the Inspections Department of TAT will continue to carry out controls to ensure businesses follow the health protocols and close on time. We are also receiving assistance from Minister of Justice and her CAPSM. Failure in following the COVID-19 protocols and guidelines will result in fines and ultimately, and unfortunately, closure of the business. These are measures that must be taken in order to ensure that St. Martin visitors and residents feel safe when traveling to St. Martin or when we're out and about venturing into the public. We all must do our part in ensuring that we continue to rebuild the economy, practice responsible behavior so as not to overburden our hospital capacity, and by doing so, help us avoid closure of nightlife businesses or implementation of curfews. Thank you all for your attention, and I would like to wish everyone season's greetings. I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Minister DeWeaver, for your opener. At this time, I would like to invite the Prime Minister and Minister of General Affairs, the Honorable Silvera Jacobs, to address you. Prime Minister Jacobs, you have the virtual floor.
Thank you so much, Relaika. A good morning to my colleague ministers, members of the press, Ms. Roach, and the listening and viewing public. Welcome and thank you for joining us. I would like to add my statements to those of all the ministers before me in relation to the COVID numbers, the increasing rate of the COVID numbers, and the upcoming holiday season. With the recent trend that we have been noticing in COVID-19 active cases and the steady increase, even while we've had also lots of recoveries, it is important for us to recognize that the public's behavior plays a big role in the spread of this virus. As I've said in previous press briefings, press statements, and the like, we have been here before and we know exactly now what we have to do to stop the spread. It is up to all of us within the community, citizens, business owners, organizers of events, and government, whether the results are a further increase or a diminished spread of the virus. So it is up to us, whether it stops, whether it progresses, or whether it at least stays on a level that is manageable. As such, our residents and visitors must all do their part to curb the spread of COVID-19 on St. Martin. This cannot be repeated enough. We must maintain a proper social distance of 2 meters as much as possible. And especially when that cannot be the case, it must be coupled with proper mask usage. And frequent hand washing or hand sanitizing should be practiced at all times, not only when out in public, but also within our own homes to protect the ones we love. Social gatherings should remain at a minimum in terms of the number of persons gathering together for the safety of our population. These practices can help limit the spread of the disease and is proven to do so. And most importantly, protect our most vulnerable, those loved ones with underlying conditions, and the elderly. This is a sincere plea to the general public to remain vigilant and not become complacent as we celebrate Christmas. Do avoid mass gatherings. All persons needing or planning events must go through the regular permitting process, and all facilities that are equipped to host gatherings must ensure that the guidelines which have been published are upheld at all times or risk having that event shut down. We really would not want for you to have to lose out on an investment, so we do ask that you follow the proper procedures and ensure that your facility, your venue, your event is sanctioned by this government. Continue to wear your mask, as I mentioned before. That has helped tremendously over the past few months to keep our numbers manageable. Wash hands frequently. And of course, when we mention masks, DCOM has put out several proper mask usage information bulletins. Do go back and refresh your memory to ensure that we have not become lax. Christmas is coming, yes, and there are some festivities that government will allow, but also we will be ensuring that the necessary enforcement takes place. The guidelines that were printed, as Minister of Tiat mentioned, published and is online, is there to protect us. We do not, I mentioned this again, we do not want to go back to the days of a lockdown. As we're seeing that around the world, lots of major countries are going in that direction, and this can already negatively impact our economy because those are the visitors we are relying on to come to our country. We must therefore protect what little economic development we are able to carry out now. It is up to you, business owners. It is up to you, persons who will frequent these businesses, and it is up to all of us to remember that you do have to go home to the ones you love. Be safe at all times and ensure that we're doing everything to stay at manageable levels. Also, to update the people of St. Martin, on Monday, December 14, 2020, in my capacity as Minister of General Affairs, I attended a Central Committee meeting to update the Parliament of St. Martin on the outcome of the negotiations with the Ministry of Interior Relations and Kingdom Relations, Bezit Ka, surrounding the third tranche of liquidity support, as well as to gain the necessary support needed to be able to proceed further with the discussions, which would hopefully lead to an agreement. As was stated in Parliament, St. Martin's negotiation team has been in discussions with Bezit Ka in order to come to agreements on a third tranche of liquidity support over the past 6 years. That will be actually, we have been in the discussions with agreements for the third tranche of liquidity support, which will also determine how we function over the next 6 years. The government of St. Martin received further clarity as to the limits Your mic's open, Minister Duran. The government of St. Martin received further clarity as to the limits of the authority of the Caribbean Entity for Reform and Development. This is the updated version or the revised version of the Caribbean Reform Entity, first proposed in July. Changes and clarifications in the Memorandum of Explanation after discussion with Curaçao and Aruba is what was submitted to the Council of State for their perusal and advice. It is this version that St. Martin is expected to agree to in order to receive further liquidity support. The COHO is solely there to assist the ministries with the execution and monitoring of the progress to be made. And this progress is what will determine further liquidity support and or support for projects which could be in the form of loans or grants. The authority of the COHO, I was able to ascertain through those discussions, is limited by the agreements that we established in the package of structural reforms together with the Netherlands. The authorities of the COHO, which we question heavily, does not encompass the powers that traditionally and legally belongs to government or parliament. They cannot take the decisions for us. St. Martin will take the lead and will be accountable for the execution and completion of said structural reforms, the country packages. The onus is therefore going to heavily lie on our civil service and ministers, as well as their support staff, to ensure that St. Martin gains as much as possible in the time frame set. While I and the government of St. Martin would have liked to see this support be done in another manner that is more respectful and more in collaboration, we expect that the changes made, more changes can be made to the law after the discussion with the Council of State and their advice has been received, which is still pending. We did also receive the assurances from the Netherlands that our pending questions will be forwarded to the Council of State for review, even though they may be far along, and also that there is the possibility to change the Memorandum of Explanation, which will be executed to assure that no excess authorities would be infringed on our government-owned companies and entities, and that the authorities of government as shareholder will continue to be upheld. The reality of our situation, people of St. Martin, is what it is at this moment. St. Martin, via its Ministry of Finance, has explored all viable options, and I mean all, to ensure financial sustainability despite the world's new economic reality. We have held out for quite a long time, and I'm quite proud of that. But as a country today, we are between a rock and a hard place, weighing our strive for autonomy against the immediate needs of the people of St. Martin. Those who are suffering, those who are without jobs, those who are depending on the salary support, though meager it may be, as well as unemployment that is being provided by government at this time. My personal feelings aside, and those of many, I must put the needs of the country as my highest priority. After going through these discussions and agreements on St. Martin's points of concern, We are now ready to move forward and accept the conditions as well as the proposed kingdom law, knowing that the needed reforms will be able to be executed for more effective and efficient governing. During Monday's meeting, by the end, the opinion of Parliament was quite clear, with a majority giving their support for government to proceed with the agreements related to the coho and country packages in the interest of the people of St. Martin. In the meantime, the government of St. Martin has forwarded that last information requested by Bezit-Ka, including the declaration of support of our Parliament signed by the Chairman and the Acting Secretary General of Parliament. Hopefully, we will receive answers soon. The meeting of the Kingdom Council of Ministers is scheduled for Friday, where we expect that there will be approval moving forward to give St. Martin the necessary financial support we need at this time. One last point. Sorry for the lengthiness of my statements today. Last week, Friday, I also attended a ministerial meeting together with the Ministers of Justice and Finance and the State Secretary Knops and the Minister of Defense, Ank Bijleveld, as well as all our support staff, as well as State Secretary of Justice, Broekers-Knol, to discuss and to come to agreements for collaboration between the Dutch Ministry of Defense, or I should say continued collaboration between the Dutch Ministry of Defense and Border Control and St. Martin's Ministry of Justice, which carries the responsibility of border control on the island. During the meeting, the delegation discussed the recommendations that had been put forward by the Progress Committee, and we all could agree on the recommendations made. This meeting was quite productive as all points were adopted, and at the end of the meeting, parties agreed to continue to have discussions on a technical level pertaining to a particular point that remained a concern for St. Martin. I would like to thank you for your attention thus far, and I look forward to any further questions from the press. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister Jacobs, for your opening remarks. At this time, I would like to invite the Minister of Public Housing, Spatial Planning, Environment, and Infrastructure, the Honorable Egbert Duran, to address you. Minister Duran, you have the virtual floor.
Thank you, Relaika. Good morning to you. Good morning to the Honorable Prime Minister, my colleague ministers, members of the media, and a special good morning to the people of St. Martin. Today, I wish to update you on the following points. Firstly, as we near the holidays, I would like to inform the general public that immediate compliance is expected for the removal of containers, abandoned or stationary vehicles, and all objects from the ring road. The storage, placement, or dumping of any objects on government property without permission is prohibited. All vehicles, containers, and objects must be removed within the next days within 10 days from today. Non-compliance of the property use will result in measures being taken at the owner's expense. In reference to recent works being carried out on 80 Road in Dutch Quarter last week, it has been noted that after thorough inspection that due to illegal connections onto the incomplete sewage system caused the constant overflow of sewage water coming from the pits and settling in the lowest point on the road. Immediate actions were taken by the Department of New Projects and the contractor due to the unsanitary environment that this issue has caused. The works were carried out on December 10th of this year and were completed on the 11th. The works temporarily interrupted the flow of the traffic on 80 Road for one day, which the road was closed with an effective detour route. In efforts to repair and stop the constant flow of raw sewage water onto the public road, the 5 sewage inspection pits were pumped in order to repair the sewage pit on the road that was excavated, which has been repaved in the meantime. I commend the staff of the Department of New Projects, Infrastructure Management, and also the contractors for a job well done. And I would like to wish the residents of Dutch Quarter very well with respect to the issue finally being resolved and addressed. On Monday, December 14, 2020, I visited the Lebe project site on WG Boncampo Road opposite the Vineyard Building, along with the head of infrastructure management and representatives of the contractor and their support and my support staff. This project was initiated to address the limited embarking and disembarking terminals for safe transport of tourists for the tour buses between the cruise ship terminal and the Walter J. Nisbet Road. Numerous agencies expressed their concern, which fostered the collaborative effort between the Ministry of Rummy and the Ministry of Tiat. The project was realized as a safe procedure for tourists to aboard the tour buses and to disembark from the tour buses at the head and the beginning of the tours. The levee will alleviate the traffic congestion by avoiding roadblocks and allow enhanced management of the tour buses by their representing agencies. The levee is solely intended for use by tour buses and prohibits parking and or standing of any other vehicular activities. In June of this year, the project commenced, although it has been delayed, awaiting the necessary signage. However, I am proud to announce that the completion, and I look forward to a collaborative effort that is in the best interest of the country, and I hope it flows well. Lastly, I would like to announce the start of the phase of the 2020 road paving, patching, maintenance project, and make the necessary improvements to our road network. The main objective of this project is focused on repairing the badly damaged sections of the road and beyond patchworks and repairs. Also continue to do the typical patchworks on the road where this is possible and feasible in the various districts. The main goal is for our roads to be safe and as possible for our residents and to improve the longevity and the durability of our road network. Better road surfacing benefits us all as a community and will also make it easier and safer for our convenience while traveling on an open road. Therefore, the Department of Infrastructure Management has specifically identified the critical areas which will be fixed as soon as possible. The first phase of the works are to start today, December 16th at 9 p.m. this evening, until tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. and continues Thursday through Friday. The works of we will be starting off with the Nazareth Road, the Arch Road, LB Scott Road, Welfare Road, and Union Road. I advise motorists to please exercise caution for the safety of the workers and on their sites. I thank the community for their continued patience and I apologize for any inconvenience that this may cause. That will be all for me now for today, and I look forward to any questions that members of the media might have.
If you've just joined us, you are watching the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, December 16th, 2020. Thank you for joining us. We now move on to the question and answer session, but before we begin, I would like to inform that the Minister of Finance, the Honorable Artwell Edion, is present, however, will not be making any opening statements, but is available for any questions the media may have. The floor is open, and Dimitri Whitfield of the Daily Herald, you have the floor. Dimitri, if you can hear us, can you kindly unmute your mic, please? Okay, we'll go ahead and move on. I would like to invite Jeffrey Dr. Sockren of Island 92 Radio. You have the floor.
Good morning to all of the ministers. I'd like to take a brief moment to wish everyone a very happy holiday season, and may you and your families all remain safe. And thank you to the service. Thank you for your service to our country. Everywhere I went yesterday afternoon, this is perhaps best addressed by our Minister of TIAT, the Honorable Ludmila de Wever. Everywhere I went yesterday, people and businesses all asked me the same question. They recognize that masks are not being worn, social distancing is not being practiced, masks are being worn incorrectly. We see it across a wide array of businesses on the island. And it was very nice to hear you talk about enforcement. What specific types of enforcement activities can businesses expect? What will be done to ensure that the protocols are enforced across the board? Because people are, quite frankly, a little scared. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sock, for the question. The enforcement is that is in place, or that will continue to be in place, is what we have been doing from the time that we reopened after we came out of the curfew and the lockdown. I think that the public has forgotten that a ministerial regulation is still in effect. It's the same ministerial regulation that forced the businesses to be closed at 10 p.m. and then we increased it to 12 p.m. and then we increased it again to 2 a.m. Our island needs an opportunity to survive, which is why I am out here, pleading with the public that they are reminded that a ministerial regulation is still in effect. The ministerial regulation allows us to close businesses if they are not following the protocols in place that they use or they agreed to when they reopened. One of that is social distancing, which is why I repeated that in my opening statement. Another one is it's just the social distancing, and the crowd control is the most important. What you have seen now is that certain businesses have come back to normal as if COVID-19 never existed. These businesses are now a cluster. That is what I would like the public to know. I am not going to name and shame the businesses that are clusters, because when they will be closed, unfortunately, then you will know that they have become a cluster. So what I have done, and what businesses have been fantastic about, is knowing that they have been contacted that they are a cluster, and they are ensuring us that they are doing better procedures and being stricter about asking their customers to come in with a mask and ensures proper social distancing. What will continue now is that the TAED inspectors have been advised to go out as well during the nighttime hours, even though normally they're around during the day. And the CAPISM will be given a copy again of the ministerial regulation so that everyone knows what is allowed and enforceable by law. Thank you, Dr. Sock.
Thank you, Minister Weaver, and thank you, Dr. Sock, for the question. I would now like to invite Dimitri Whitfield of the Daily Herald. You have the floor.
Dimitri, you're still muted.
No, I think he's having some technical difficulties. We'll go ahead and move on. Lyndon Brown of BCN TV, you have the floor.
Good morning to the people of St. Martin and to the ministers that are present here today. Question to the Minister of Vroomi, Minister Duran. There are a lot of people complaining that they are not receiving their building permit. For years, a lot of people have their building permit held up. For what reason, I don't know. But ministers, the people have appreciated so far that you give out a number of building permit. Can you explain to the people, Minister, what can delay the completion of some people building permit? Explain to them what.
Thank you, Mr. Brown, for your question. Upon taking office, I mentioned in several press briefings, and this issue has definitely been addressed. It had my full attention, is that the Department of Permits and the Department of New Projects jointly formed a task force, which they expedite building permits, and this has been going well. I know that this has been a major issue in the past, but at the moment, I won't say we have an issue with processing building permits. There are a lot of building permits being processed every week. So that is going well. I have not been receiving any complaints. So in my opinion, and I assume I would say that goes far to say, in the opinion of the public thus far, there are not many complaints. Of course, you have certain queries where people have to do corrections and those things, but that is totally normal. But in terms of extreme backlog, that is definitely has been addressed, and it's going well. Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Minister Duran, and thank you, Lyndon, for the question. We'll try once again. Dimitri Whitfield of the Daily Herald, you have the floor.
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me, Relaika?
Yes, Dimitri, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Yes, finally. Good morning to the people of St. Martin, to all the ministers and the Council of Ministers, my colleagues. My first question is for Minister Anna Richardson, the Honorable Minister of Justice. Minister Richardson, on Monday, you informed Parliament that Immigration's Border and Protection Mobile Unit would be returned under the authority of the Immigration Department. Now, although you said you don't know why one of your predecessors transferred the authority of the unit to the police, but when it was done, it was only 2 months after the former immigration chief was arrested on human smuggling charges, and 3 months after the national detective started an investigation that ultimately led to the convictions of multiple immigration officers for human smuggling, abuse of position, and bribery. With this seemingly sudden change, what provisions have you made for the transition of the immigration officers to their new administrative relationships? What are the benefits and drawbacks of this move? What steps have been taken or are being considered that the mistakes of the past are not repeated in the future? The checks and balances, if you will. And for clarity, I'm not trying to paint the immigration department as a barrel of rotting apples. Definitely not. But I'm sure we both can agree that even the slightest bit of corruption in the institutions that uphold justice is not beneficial for the development of St. Martin. Thank you for...
Good morning, Dimitri. I feel like you've made a statement as opposed to asking a question. That was quite lengthy and then coupled with an opinion in the end. Nevertheless, I'll try to sum it up and maybe you can even send me your questions in writing and I can be more specific. But what I'll say is this. Whilst I recognize your point or your angle in terms of stating that there was issues within the immigration department at that time, we cannot ignore the fact that, as I indicated, even on the floor of Parliament, that the law does not, the LIOL does not prescribe for the structure to be, or for immigration border to be under KPSM. So my question would be, are you seeking for us to allow it to remain as is, or should the minister take the responsibility of upgrading, improving, and enhancing the Ministry of Justice? These are the steps this minister is taking. So that's all I can give you right now. But if you would like for me to answer your specific questions, I'd be willing to receive those in writing. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Richardson, and thank you, Dimitri. I would now like to invite Bibi Shah of SMN News. You have the floor.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Minister Richardson, and I must thank you very, very much for coming forward and at least answering my questions 8 days later. However, Minister Richardson, I'd like a little bit of clarification. You said you asked for when you were doing the research, and I'm asking this, Minister, because 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago I asked you about this, and you said I was a bit confused. So now I'm trying to get unconfused. You said that when you were doing this research, when I asked you when you were working in the banking industry about this research in 2010, then you're saying in 2013 you obtained a DMV license. Minister, we are in 2020. Why is the registry not active if you are this proactive person? I was trying to get a trailblazer, trying to get a registry that a country really lacks. You asked me if I did researches. Minister, you have an investigation ongoing, I believe. I would urge you, if you don't want to do it, get your investigators to check and see what's going on at the inspection department. I have people paying as much as $1,000 to have a...
Bibi, can you go ahead and ask your question, please, as we are running out of time? Thank you. Can you unmute yourself? I muted you in order to let you know that.
Yes, so I'm asking you this, Minister, that's a clarification about the DMV. You said you obtained a license to 13, if I heard you correctly. We are in 2020. Why is it yet not launched? Because when I asked you 2 weeks ago, you said it is not yet online. Then I'd like to ask you if there has been any adjustment to the law that regulates the renewal of residency permits, specifically permanent residency, Minister. And I can understand you were somewhat surprised when I asked your reaction. There are quite a number of people who came forward and said when they submitted their permit after the 5 years, they are supposed to have a permanent residency. And they're saying that now the department is asking, or the ministry is asking, for things such as a bank statement and their financial status on the island, etc., etc. What I'd like to know is if that policy has been amended, if it was taken.
Minister Richardson, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Bibi, 2 weeks ago when you asked this question, you referred to it about the legislation. You said, Minister Richardson, A few years ago, you've been working on the legislation, and that is where I corrected you. I said, BB, you have it wrong because I wasn't working on the legislation. The legislation already exists. Can we agree? Good. What I said to you thereafter is there is a DMV in the pipeline, and that remains my answer to your question as to why not. There's various ways it has to work, but bear in mind, BB, your next follow-up question was if reference to you saying to me, no, I assume in the capacity as minister, there's something happening at the inspection department. You, as I have to do by law, is divide the two. As Minister Richardson, I have to conduct myself and operate within the framework of my authority in the law, separate from any sort of work I was doing with the private entity. And you asked me about moving it over to someone else. Yes, I have to do that. That is what we are requested to do and required to do by law. And those are the lines I'm following. Now, what that entity management will do going forward to bring it online is up to them. I'm not involved in that aspect. If you're asking me about the inspection department, that is something separate, and I would have to receive reasonable documentation as to inquire about that. And then your third aspect of question has to do with the permit. I'm sorry, Relaika, because her communication was so long. Honestly, I would need her to repeat the last part. Now she's speaking to me as the Minister of Justice, wanting to know about permits and 5 years. The question isn't clear for me to be able to give an answer.
Thank you, Minister. Unfortunately, as we are limited for time, BB, I would request that you do have that sent in writing as you did pose the initial question to the Minister. We will now move on to the second round of questions. Jeffrey, Dr. Soksakrin, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Relaika. One of the areas that we heard Minister DeWeaver speak about was the new travel insurance requirement. Curious if you could give us some insights, and I know that it appears to be still a bit of work in progress. Have we seen COVID brought to the island by tourism, by tourists? Or is that number still statistically insignificant as it was last time we spoke? Secondly, when you look at that, tourists coming, when cruise ship tourism returns, how will the insurance apply to cruise ship passengers, and roughly what are the costs looking like, for this type of coverage? Thank you.
Thanks for the question, Dr. Sock. The insurance is ready to go. I just needed sufficient time to update the public, update our visitors, to market it, advertise it. But it will not be problematic because it will be built into the same system that we use at stmartinentry.com, which every person traveling to the island, including residents, have to fill in because it allows us to do contact tracing should anything happen. The insurance for cruise, when cruise restarts, they are exempted because they are on the island for less than 24 hours. Also, anyone in transit will be also exempted because it's less than 24 hours and they're not staying on our island. What I would like the public to be reminded of is that the reason that you saw pretty much every minister here today advising us to be careful is that, it took us so long to get off of being code orange, and through our behavior, we're now going to be put back on code orange if our cases keep going up. In addition, countries already have an advisory out to not have their citizens travel to St. Martin, which causes whatever existing insurance they have in those countries to be voided because they received a warning from their countries, from the governments of their countries that they're visiting from. As it pertains to the price, the reason I have waited so long is because I wanted to make sure that our insurance included a medical evacuation for our largest market, which is America. It includes a medical evacuation. It is valid for up to 180 days. Straight stay without leaving the island. It costs $30 per person over the age of 14. Under the age of 14, it is $10 per person. So again, like I said, it covers quarantine costs, isolation costs, medical expenses, hospitalization. All of the information will be coming out. I think I covered everything you asked me about this insurance, but I believe that it's one of the best ones that we have in the region now because of the fact that we include medical evacuation, whereas Aruba does not include it. Our residents are exempted from it. Our St. Martin residents are exempted from it. And that is it for all. Thank you very much for the opportunity to clarify this.
Minister, the one other.
Thank you, Minister DeWeaver. Unfortunately, Dr. Salk, we are pressed for time, so I cannot allow that follow-up. My apologies. I would like to now invite Lyndon Brown, BCN TV, you have the floor.
Question to the Minister of Justice. Minister of Justice, as I prepare this question, does it bother Minister sometimes that the union asking the minister to step down, Minister, and the people are saying this minister, but the minister come and meet this problem within the Justice Department. And the people are saying again that they are with you because they find it unfair, ministers, that now the union is asking the minister to step down. And she came and meet this uncertainty. So, Minister, please respond to this question statement, please, Minister.
Mr. Brown, good morning to you once again. Thank you for the opportunity to answer your question. Look, I'll be very honest with you. I totally understand the frustration of the officers and employees of the Ministry of Justice. It is a long time. One of the things that I did when I got into this position is hit the ground running, and some persons took it as though I'm not, being as communicative as they would like me to be. I'm not meeting with them as often as they would like. But what I try to stray away from is too much talking and not enough action. I am happy that, with the installation of the project group for the function book, for example, it is not just one function book, meaning that of CAPSM that is being worked on and processed, but actually all 9 function books within the Ministry of Justice is being handled. And I'm so happy that the work group has been so diligent with their work ethics and has been so communicated to this project that a commitment is that by December 23rd, the book or the function book of the Ministry of Justice will be turned over to the CCSU for review. The CCSU, in anticipation of receiving the 9 books to review, has already submitted a request asking for an additional 2 weeks. So now they have 8 weeks to review it. I'm very proud about the progress that we're making, but I think that everything begins and ends with respect. And I think that is something that is lacking. At the end of the day, I'm a human as well. I didn't fall out of the sky. I have family as well that is paying attention to the way that persons are speaking about me, and it's not healthy. Even, my mom is a diabetic, for example, and she's taking on this stress. I have to consistently ask her to, calm down. My point of bringing that up is that we need to balance the scale. This entire position, being in it is one thing, but when you sit in this seat and you have to deal with so many different aspects at the same time, it's a lot. Nevertheless, I understand the frustration, and it is based on that I will continue to dedicate my service as long as I'm here in this position. I have no malintent. I have only consideration for the staff, and I look forward to the day when we will be able to put all of this behind us and be proud of where we're taking the Ministry of Justice in its entirety.
Thank you, Minister Richardson, and thank you, Lyndon, for the question. I would now like to invite Dimitri Whitfield. You have the floor.
Thank you again, Relaika. Before I ask my question, my last question is to the Minister of TIAT, but I just want to briefly respond to our Honorable Minister of Justice. You kind of rhetorically asked me a question whether I think it should fall under police. I have no opinion. I asked you about the transition process, and in all due respect, you didn't answer that question. I asked you about the transition process and the checks and balances that will be put in place. Nevertheless, my second question to Minister DeWeaver. Minister, I want to ask you about some old business. About 7 or 8 weeks ago, You made a presentation in Parliament about your ministry's economic recovery plan and tax reform, specifically to abolish income and profit tax in a phased approach. What has been the progress in implementing the tax reform proposal? Thank you.
Thank you, Dimitri. You have me smiling because it's wonderful to see your face and you're looking so dapper this morning. Thank you for the question. Actually, right after this, my chief of staff and the Minister of Finance, we have a meeting with third parties to discuss our way forward on this. And I'm smiling because I actually see some progress happening, especially after discussions with the Minister of Finance several weeks ago. And after today's meeting, I will see how far we get with it, and I'll be able to give you another update. So thank you for that. So today is the day at 12 o'clock with that meeting. As another note, I just wanted to clarify something because I realized I missed a part of the question that Dr. Sok asked. It was about the number of imported cases. So the number of imported cases to date is still less than 5. So I just wanted to put that out there. But the main point, insurance is for risk management. That is the point of us doing this insurance. We have limited medical resources on the island, even with the assistance that we have received from the Netherlands, with the AMI team, with the extra place outside of the hospital. So the whole point of this right now, which is why some countries are only now reopening, is because we have to manage our limited medical resources. This is why it's important for our largest group of visitors to be able to get the access to be medically evacuated to the USA should we reach our capacity. Thank you both very much for the question and the opportunity to clarify.
Thank you, Minister DeWeaver, and thank you, Dimitri. I would now like to invite Bibi Shah. You have the floor.
Veronica, do we have the Prime Minister? Is she still there?
Yes, Bibi, she is.
All right. PM Jacobs, good morning. Before I said that, Minister Richardson, I am going to send you my questions and everything by email. Prime Minister Jacob, yesterday, I think on Monday, you got the clearance from Parliament, a declaration basically to go ahead and sign. What I am asking you is a clarification. There's still some confusion within the community. Did anything whatsoever change in the COHO legislation that the Holland is putting forward since Curacao and Aruba signed off? Yes, St. Martin didn't sign off, was still in discussions, wanted certain changes. I think I heard you said nothing changed, but if that's the case, why did it take so long, the last minute, also for St. Martin to get on board? So first, did anything change, anything whatsoever? I know you just said that you're working on a memorandum of understanding to make sure that nothing happens, nothing changed with regards to the autonomy of the country, but can you give us some clarity on that?
Thank you, Bibi. I made an extra long statement this morning, hoping to bring clarity to that part. And I know part of the presentation made this morning, as well as what was made in Parliament, explained what had changed. What had been presented to us in July was the Caribbean Reform Entity. After the discussions with Curacao, certain changes were brought, minor changes to the law, but most of the changes to the Memorandum of Explanation, the toelichting, where it could further clarify, I guess, the spirit of the law, as you may call it. As many of us, all 3 countries, had concerns in terms of the authorities of the COHO, or the chair as it was then CRE, now called COHO. The addition of development was put in the title because it's not only looking at reforms, but also at development. So the changes that Curacao brought forward and that Aruba brought in before it went to the Raad van State, that is the draft that we, as St. Martin, I mentioned very clearly, are expected to agree to, with the understanding that the Raad van State will make its advice. We have gotten clarification, just like Curacao and Aruba got in their deliberations, as to the authorities, etc. And it has been clarified that it will not usurp our authorities. That was made clear to us. What it will do is manage the agreements that we make for the landspakketten, the country packages. It will regulate if we decide in this uitvoerings agenda, what do you call that in English? The executing agenda of what is agreed upon on a timeline, and the financing necessary and the human resources necessary, how that will be disseminated. It will decide that. That's what the COHO will decide. But if a reform requires legislative changes, it has to go through the regular process, just like every other law, which means government will have to draft it, send it to the Raad van Advies, send it to the, through the governor to the parliament. Parliament deliberates on it. So we still get our opportunity as a council of ministers to take the necessary decisions. Yeah, so that was explained. How the funding will come will depend on the different situations. So there's no bag of money as people expect. We're getting liquidity support today. We're going to get liquidity support as needed going through. And once we have our own budget to carry our weight, then the liquidity support will stop. And the only financing that will come through the COHO would be for ontwikkelingen, for reforms and or development projects and programs as determined. And in those discussions and agreements, then it will be determined whether they are grants or whether they are loans. So what we're getting now for liquidity support, 61.2 million is a loan, 30 million as a grant for the prison and for the building as well as programs related to that. That's a grant. And what we fought bitterly for, but weren't able to change their minds on, except to get a stay, let's say, on an execution of it, was what was in the DPO under the Trust Fund for Financial Management and the Tax Office. That is not going to be released via the DPO any longer because they are fearful that the Trust Fund will run out of funds and executing programs will not be able to be finalized. So the promise is there that if by mid-2021 that is still available, we would be able to get a grant of $15 million euros out of that fund still, but being handled through the COHO. So basically, every financial agreement moving forward, the Dutch government is only willing to manage and oversee that through the Caribbean entity or organ for reform and development. That is what is on the table at the moment. That's the deal. But of course, as I also mentioned, and I'll reiterate, we had 2 more questions that once we have agreed can go on to the Raad van State. And it's up to them then, of course, how far they are, whether they will take them along. There are more elucidations on the questions already asked, as well as changes to the memorandum of explanation to ensure that there is no abuse of our government-owned companies. That they did agree on. But we have to await the process of it coming back from the Council of State. Hope to have clarified for you and the general public, Bibi.
Thank you, Prime Minister Jacobs, and thank you, Bibi, for the question. Members of the media, this does bring us to the end of the question and answer session. Thank you once again for joining us. Honorable Ministers of the Council, members of the media, radio listeners, and online viewers. Yes, sorry. Prime Minister Jacobs.
I had asked my staff to let you know I had missed an announcement. Sorry, if I may, just 2 minutes. Thank you. The Council of Ministers, first of all, we've noted, Minister of Justice didn't mention this, but the amount of road accidents have also increased. We don't have a number to that, but I'm seeing it in the behavior of our motorists and especially motorbike and scooter riders. We're asking you, especially too, because of the situation of COVID-19, to avoid, let's call it, disrespectful behavior on the streets. We will all get to where we need to go. The roads are narrow. Please be more careful and use the roads more conscientiously. The Council of Ministers also yesterday approved that the sale of fireworks will be allowed. So the authorized entity to do so will, of course, have to go through the necessary precautions with our fire department, etc. And the Ministry of Romy is also facilitating a space. Of course, for the purchase of such, the necessary social distancing and other guidelines have to be adhered to, and the general public is asked to take all necessary precautions when purchasing and letting off any types of fireworks, ensuring that for the same reason that we do not have huge capacity at our hospitals, and to ensure that safety is happening in the usage of fireworks, which we know can cause harm, bodily harm. That was debated heavily, but in keeping with our Christmas traditions, we agreed that it would be able to continue, as well as the display as per usual, which will be much smaller than usual, but at least persons can remain a safe distance. They do not have to gather at any one spot to be able to enjoy the fireworks display for the old new year when that comes around. And I'd like to also take this time to wish the people of St. Martin all the very best for the coming year. I wish much strength to all of those still coping with the COVID-19 related illnesses, as well as others, and much strength to the families as well in assisting them or dealing with the loss that they have dealt with thus far. Let us please avoid us going back there, not just for lockdown, but also for loss of life and for health and strength for this country to be able to come back to its full capacity. Blessed day to all.
Thank you, Prime Minister Jacobs. Once again, honorable ministers of the council, members of the media, radio listeners, and online viewers, this does bring us to the end of the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, December 16th, 2020. For rebroadcast, tune into St. Martin Gov Radio 107.9 FM, the official Facebook page of the Government of St. Martin, the YouTube channel Government of St. Martin, and St. Martin Cable TV channel 115. For video on demand, log on to the official government's website at stmartingov.org. On behalf of the Department of Communication and the Government of St. Martin, I'm Relika Roach, and wishing you a pleasant day further.